How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, June 6th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an individual profile on Anthony Rendon, the third baseman for the Los Angeles Angels, turns 31 today. If you're not familiar with who Anthony Rendon is, he's one of the players who was very responsible for the Washington Nationals even making it into the playoffs, the year that they barely made the wild card and the year that they won the World Series. And now, after a couple injuries and kind of dealing with a shortened quarantine season, he's looking to get right back out to his groove into LA. But to give a little bit of context on Anthony Rendon, with this episode of The Elite, I plan on going over his accomplishments, his achievements from the beginning of his career to now. And I think just by going through it, it'll give people a good understanding as to why he's considered one of the elite baseball players right now. So he would initially come out of, he grew up in Houston. Out of high school, he was one of the best high school players, but then he would get signed he would get drafted in the 27th round by the Atlanta Braves. He turned that down, went to college at Rice, and then at Rice, he went to really kind of just dominate. And as a freshman, he was the freshman of the year, basically. Sophomore, he won the Dick Hauser Trophy, and the Houston mayor went on to declare an Anthony Rendon day while he was playing at Rice, which is really kind of insane. Once that season was finished, he would go on to get picked up by the Washington Nationals. They selected him with the 6th overall pick of the 2011 MLB draft, and it would take him a couple years to get called up to the MLB. He would officially get called up his age 23 season in 2013 for the Washington Nationals. He would go on to play 98 games in a season where the Nats would finish with an 86-76 record. They lost 12 more games in the previous season. They would miss the playoffs. They would finish second in the National League East. And looking out to how Anthony Rendon fared in that season. In the 98 games he played, he finished with 93 hits, less hits than games played, 40 runs. He had 23 doubles in those 98 games, 7 home runs, 38 RBIs, batting with a .265 batting average, .329 OBP, and a .396 slugging. So, I mean, as a rookie, he wasn't really on a lot of radars, but it's true to say that he wasn't necessarily struggling, and he did get a lot better from that moment on out. In his second season in 2014, he would play 153 games in a season where the Washington Nationals would finish with the best record in the National League East. The year that Matt Williams won Manager of the Year, just to give a little bit of context. In the season, Anthony Rendon would finish with 176 hits in those 153 games. That is the most hits that Anthony Rendon has ever put up in a season, even including his All-Star season. He would finish with 111 runs on the season, which led the National Leagues. That's the only time in which he's led the league in the National League in runs in his second year in the league. He would finish with 21 home runs, 83 RBIs, not to mention 39 doubles, and he also had 6 triples. The most triples he ever put up in a season was that year. He would finish with a .287 batting average, which is a big jump from .265 the year before. His OPS jumped from 725 to 824 by 99 points. He would go on to be named a Silver Slugger in the National League for the very first time in his career, and he would finish 5th in MVP voting, and a very tough MVP year. And then that year, I believe it saw Clayton Kershaw win the MVP for his amazing season. So that would be his second season, and then that year they would go on. Once they made the playoffs, they would end up losing in the National League Division Series to the Giants, who I believe in 2014 ended up beating the Royals. This was their third in their 5-year stretch, just to give a little bit more context, but that was the team that the Nats lost to that year. So after that season, Rendon will come back for year 3 in 2015, his age 25 season. For the Nats, he only played really 80 games in 2015 as he sprained the medial collateral ligament in his left knee during spring training. So, of course, he would miss a good chunk of the first half of the season. Regardless, in the 80 games that he would play for a Nationals team that finished with the second best record in the division, he would go on to finish with 82 hits in the 80 games that he played. That's the second season in a row he had more hits than games played. He finished with 43 runs on the season in those 80 games, which is more than half the runs in games. So I mean that's still really good. 16 doubles, 5 home runs, 25 RBIs, batting 264, with a 264 batting average and a 707 OPS. Of course, this is a chalk down or like a tick down from what he was doing the previous year, but he would slowly get himself back in the mix. After missing the playoffs, he would come back in 2016 for his age 26 season, his fourth year in Washington. He would go on to play 156 games, the most games he's played in a season, by the way. He played 156 games for a Washington Nationals team that finished with the best record in the National League East for the second time since he's gotten there. And the second full season he really played. They won 12 more games than the previous year, and this is the year that Max Scherzer won the Cy Young Award. Though this is when Max Scherzer won his first Cy Young Award with the Nationals. But still, looking at how Rendon did this year, he would finish with 153 hits in the 156 games he played, less hits than games played, just by 3. He had 91 runs on the season as well. He had 38 doubles, second season in the 3-year span in which he finished with at least 35 doubles. He finished with 20 home runs and 85 RBIs on the season. Up until that point, 85 was a career high. He would go on to finish with a 270 batting average, was a tick up from 264 the year before. And his 707 OPS from 2015 jumped up to maybe 797. He was like I said, he was definitely getting a lot better. In 2016, after that season, they would go on to lose in the National League Division Series to the Dodgers in 5. And this is in 2016 where the Cubs ended up winning it all. But following their loss to the Dodgers, the Nationals would come back in 2007, or Anthony Rendon will come back to the Washington Nationals in 2017, his age 27 season. He would go on to play 147 games in a season where the Nats would finish with a 97-65 record. They won the National League East for the second year in a row, third time in about a 4-year span since Rendon had got there. They won 2 more games in the previous season, like I just said. This is a season where Max Scherzer won his second Cy Young in a row. But regardless, in the 147 games he played, he finished with 153 hits. This is the third season in which he had more hits than games played in his first 5 years in the league. He hit 41 doubles the first time he crossed the 40 threshold. He finished with 25 home runs, up at that point a career high. He finished with 100 RBIs, which up until that point was a career high, the first time he had ever eclipsed 100 RBIs. He would finish with a 301 batting average, the first time he ever eclipsed 300 batting average, with a 937 OPS, which was a lot higher than 797 the year before, which is a 140-point increase. And he would finish 6th in MVP voting, even though he would not be named an All-Star. He finished behind Giancarlo Stanton, who had like 60 home runs, so of course that would be tough for him to win that MVP. But following that season, they would end up losing to the Chicago Cubs, who had won the World Series the year prior. But in 2017, this would be the year, I believe, that the Astros beat the Dodgers. But, Anthony Rendon, the Nationals were still in the very mix of that. In 2018, he would come back for his age 28 season for his 6th year in Washington. In 2018, he would play 136 games in a season where the Nats finished with an 82-80 record. They missed the playoffs completely after finishing second in the division. They won 15 less games than the year prior. And then so in this season, particularly in the 136 games he played, he finished with 163 hits. This would be the third season in his career, the fourth season in his career in which he had more hits than games played. He finished with 44 doubles, which led the National League. That's the second time he eclipsed 40 and the first time he led the National League in doubles. He finished with 24 home runs and 92 RBIs, which is about what he did last year with the 25 and 100. He would finish with a 308 batting average, which up until that point was his career high, which was 7 points higher than he did the previous year. And he finished with a 909 OPS, which was lower than his 937 OPS the year prior. And then that year in 2018, even though they missed the playoffs, he would finish 11th in MVP voting to Christian Yelich. This is the year Yelich won. And, after missing the playoffs, he would actually come back with a vengeance, and he would put together a year which I believe earned him and cemented him a spot on this list. In his only All-Star season in his career, in 2019, in his age 29 season, Anthony Rendon would play 146 games for a Washington Nationals team that finished with a 93-69 record. They won 11 more games than the previous season. Remind you, giving you context, this is the year that Bryce Harper left, so Anthony Rendon had to step up, and this was, of course, Juan Soto's rookie season, or at least his second season in the league. No, it was his rookie season. It was his rookie season in the league, and they would go on to really just win it all. And Anthony Rendon, I think, was the player that did a lot. He did a lot of heavy lifting this season. In the 146 games he played, he finished with 174 hits. That's 28 more hits than games played. He finished with 117 runs, which up until that point was that today is his career high. He would finish with 44 doubles on the season, which ties him with the year prior. That's the second season in a row in which he's led the National League in doubles, and that ties his career high, which is 44 doubles on the year. He would hit 34 home runs, which is a career high. He would hit 126 RBIs, which is a career high, and which was a National League high at that point. That's the only time in his career thus far that he's led the National League in RBIs. He would finish with a .319 batting average, which is the highest batting average Anthony Rendon has ever posted in his career. He would also post that alongside a .1010 OPS, which is the only time he's ever crossed 1,000 1,000 OPS in his career. He would go on to be named an All-Star. He would be named a Silver Slugger for the second and most recent time in his career. And he would finish third in National League MVP voting to Cody Bellinger, just to give a little bit of how good they were that year. This is Juan Soto's sophomore season, but just to give a little bit of background. But following the season in which he established himself as the third best player in the National League, the Nationals would go on to beat the Brewers in the National League wild card, thanks to a big Juan Soto hit, actually. They would go on to beat the Dodgers in 5 in the NLDS. They would beat the Cardinals they would sweep the Cardinals 4-0 in the National League Championship Series. And then they would go on to face off against the Houston Astros, beating the Astros. After the Astros put up the best regular season record in their franchise's history, Anthony Rendon and the Astros would actually beat the Houston Astros in 7 to pick up their franchise's first ever World Series title. And Anthony Rendon was a very big part of that season, considering it was a season in which he hit a lot of career highs, in which he led the National League in doubles and RBIs. Following that season, he would come back in 2020. In this season, he would go on to play 52 games in what was a shortened season. But let's not forget that after his season with the Nationals, after he won a championship, he would go on to sign with the Los Angeles Angels, which was interesting. He signed a 7-year, $245 million contract after Strasburg kind of signed a deal that was around the same amount. But regardless, he would go all the way out to LA, play in a new league, and because the coronavirus hit, the MLB had to shorten its typical 162-game season to 60 games. In this season, Anthony Rendon would play 52 games in a season where the Angels would finish with the third best record in the American League West. And even though the MLB extended the playoffs, the Angels still could not make it. In the 52 games he played, he finished with 54 hits. He had another season in which he finished with more hits than games played. He finished with 29 runs in those 52 games, which is very amazing. He finished with 11 doubles in those 52 games, 9 home runs, 31 RBIs, batting .286 with a .915 OPS. So it's a tick down to what he was doing the previous 3 years, but he was still playing incredibly well. And following that year, of course, like I said, the Angels didn't necessarily win. He finished 10th in MVP voting, surprisingly. But the only thing he would lead the American League in is double plays grounded into, which is a pretty I wouldn't want to lead the American League in double plays grounded into. But regardless, they missed the playoffs, and following that season, Anthony Rendon would come back to the Angels for this current season for 2021, which is now his age 31 season, considering he just turned 31 today. He's played 37 games for a Los Angeles Angels team that is currently sitting with the fourth best record in the American League, in the American League West at the moment. But right now, in the 37 games he's played, Anthony Rendon has logged about 32 hits, which is less hits than games played this season, with 3 home runs, 21 RBIs, a 230 batting average, and maybe a 646 OPS. But looking out to what he's going to be up to today, the Angels are going to host the Seattle Mariners today at 4:07 Eastern Standard Time, as Anthony Rendon looks to at least get off birthday home run, something. But if we look at Anthony Rendon's career right now as he turns 31, we're looking at a player who is pretty disrespected when it comes to getting named to all-star appearances versus how many times he ends up on the MVP ballot. But at the same time, I think that's just a testament as to how much he really does that people just don't see. And going forward, I have no problem listing Anthony Rendon, a player that's only made one All-Star, an elite player based off what he did a season where he led the Nationals, a team that had no business winning the World Series, to their first World Series title ever as a franchise. And with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to this piece. I hope all is well. If you ever get a chance to watch Anthony Rendon, like I said, he plays the Mariners today. He wears number 6 for the Angels. And with that said, I want to thank you all once again for listening to The Elite. I hope all is well. Once all of today's matchups are done, I will come back tomorrow on Monday, June 7th for another episode of The Elite. I actually have another Elite episode after this. Is DeAndre Hopkins, the elite wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. Also, he turned 29 today. So with that said, thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well. I'm James Sims, and stay elite. I'll catch you with an episode right after this.